I run a small podcast company called Muscle Cat Media. I've personally produced and hosted over 400 podcast episodes in the last 3 years. And these are 5 questions that you should ask yourself before launching your podcast. If you want proof that I actually do make decent podcasts, look up the Outback Quarterback NFL podcast. We've got 230 plus episodes of that. We've got 130 something 5-star ratings on Spotify. We are legit, we do exist, and you can hear the quality there if you want to validate my work. Now, to be clear, this video is about making podcasts, not about marketing or growing podcasts. That's a different beast entirely, and I can deal with that another day. But this one is just about, should you make your podcast? And before you do, what questions should you ask? Number 1, do you have a niche? You have to ask yourself the question, are you different to anybody else? Do you have a niche, or are you just the same as other, more well-established, better podcasts than you can make? There are thousands of podcasts on any given topic. Why is yours different? What would make people listen to yours? Ours, for example, just to take one of our shows, the Outback Quarterback, there are thousands of NFL podcasts. What makes ours different? Well, we're in Australia, and there is a big Australian NFL market. And whilst there are a few Australian NFL shows, I think we do things in a polished way, we're funny, and I think we produce good content because we know what we're talking about. And if you put those ingredients together into a market that's starved for some local content, people listen. So what's your niche? Do you have something different, or does it already exist and you just like the topic and therefore you think you can make a podcast about it? Find your niche. Do you have one? Question 2. If you've got co-hosts, do you have chemistry? You have to be really honest about this. For the Outback Quarterback, we had a whole month of practice shows before we went anywhere. And I said to my co-hosts, Doss and Hawley, if we don't have chemistry, if this doesn't work, if it doesn't click, then we're not doing it because we'd be wasting our time. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you do need to practice beforehand. You do need to do some trial episodes before you try and release it to the public. And you do need to make sure that you guys work together. You'll get better as you go, but do you work? Do you balance each other out? For us 3, we've got one guy here, and then myself in the middle, and it just works. And most people who listen to the show say, that's why we like it, because you balance well. If you don't have chemistry, don't do it. Ask yourself that question honestly, and don't be afraid to hurt the feelings of your friends by saying, we're not good at this. Number 3, will you grind it out? Because podcasting is a grind. It looks fun, and it is fun in a lot of ways, but there are a lot of things that are very grindy about it. I'll give you a few examples. Have you ever had an interest in sound production in the past? Have you spent hours and hours just in your free time just learning it and figuring out what sounds good and what doesn't? Because if you haven't, then you're going to have to learn all of that from scratch, which is fine, but that's going to take time. There'll be things you've never even considered. Like, what's a noise gate? Why does my voice keep ducking in and out? Why is there fuzz in the background? Why is it so hard to have 3 people in a room and have us all sound good? This is stuff you have to learn. If you're not willing to grind it out, and if you're not naturally interested in just putting together something that sounds good, then you won't stick with it. That's even before you get to all the preparation of every episode and how to do things consistently and how to release in a disciplined manner every week at the same time that your listeners expect it. These are all things you have to think about. The recording is fun, but that's probably only about 20% of it. If I was to give rough percentages to the other stuff that forms making a podcast, especially a good one, there's at least 20% of preparation time. There's 10% of time that's just time management, getting everyone together if you've got co-hosts. There's 20% of editing time. There's 10% making reels, probably, because you want to promote it elsewhere. I know that's a different topic altogether, but it's not just the podcast audio version that you're doing. And then there's another 10% that's just unforeseen stuff. Things like memory cards. Can you find them? Have you lost one today? Are they out of memory? Do you need to delete stuff before you start recording? Is your internet slow? Is your connection not working for an interview? Is the sound quality off for some reason? Are you having trouble uploading it? You need to take time to write the description and write a headline or a title of the episode that grabs people. Do you want to do timestamps? Do you want to do keywords, hashtags, all that sort of stuff? That's stuff that takes time, and it's grindy, and it's not necessarily fun, but it's an important part of it. So can you do all that stuff? Are you prepared to put in the boring stuff and do the boring stuff well that makes your podcast sound good and come across professionally? And if you can't do it consistently, then podcasting's not for you, and that's all right, but it's better to face these questions before you start and then release 2 episodes and then embarrassingly pull the pin before you tell everyone, hey, I've got a podcast, and then they ask how it's going in a month and you say, we're stopped. Question 4, that equipment that you want to buy, do you want to buy it because it's cool, or do you want to buy it because it's functional and actually serves your purpose? A lot of people, and I get it, I like gear too. I like equipment. It's cool. And I have some stuff that I really like now. But a lot of people spend money early because they think, well, we want it to sound good, so we need really good quality equipment. That's true to a point. More so, you need to learn how to use what equipment you have. Now, you need to get equipment of some standard and quality, but it doesn't have to be the best. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars on the Shure mic straight away, because that just sucks money down the drain, and it puts pressure on you because you go, well, I've spent $3,000 on equipment. Now I really need to make this podcast, and already it's a bit less fun because you're trying to make the money back that you spent, right? You're trying to justify that cost. So don't worry about that stuff. Just get some solid stuff to start with and just build it piece by piece, right? This microphone, I've got ATR 2100s. They're Audio Technicas, and they are really good. I mean, the quality is fantastic for a $130 mic, and that's Australian. So US, it's probably a touch less than $100 or around $100. And I could have spent 5 times that and had a similar result. Our listeners wouldn't know the difference unless they're audio engineers, and there's not many of those listening to our shows, but it served a purpose for 3.5, 4 years. One day I'll upgrade, but for now, this is all that I need. One piece of kit that I did really invest in, and I'm not sponsored by any of this, by the way, is the Rodecaster Pro 2. Now that's an interface. Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's got sound effects, pads that you can play. We needed it because we have multiple microphones now. We've got 3 guys in the studio at once for the NFL podcast, and it's very, very hard to do it competently without one of these boxes or something similar. 20 years ago, when I was just doing this stuff for fun as a teenager, spending my pocket money on it and trying to make music and things like that, this didn't exist. So you had to buy all these different boxes and cables and then programs and software on your computer, and it was a nightmare trying to figure out. Now, for $800 Australian, I bought this and it's all there, and it's really, really good. So if you are going to spend good money, do your research and buy something that does almost everything you need in one. It'll save you a lot of heartache. But the question, do you want it because it's cool, or do you want it because it's actually functional and serves the purpose that you need? Question 5, and this is the most important one. Would you listen to it? Would you listen to your show? And you have to be honest with yourself there, because if you wouldn't listen to it, if you'd go, meh, then nobody else will listen. Trust me. It is brutally hard to get listeners, but even harder to maintain listeners. All right, you can get them in the door. Most of them won't finish that first episode because it's either not really for them, or they were listening out of a favor, or they stumbled upon you and they were interested for 5 minutes and then, fell apart. Even good podcasts, that happens too. They lose thousands and thousands of people that way. That's normal. But it has to start with a quality product and something that you believe in. And if you wouldn't listen to it, then you can't expect others to listen to it as well. And I do ask this question constantly. I asked that of the NFL show, the Outback Quarterback, before we started it. I said, would I listen to this? And when I listened to the practice episodes that we did, I concluded, yeah, I would. And that's the same for my network, Musclecat Media, as well. We've signed a few shows now and different hosts and different talent. And I say, would I listen to this? I have to ask myself that question because I spend money on these guys, on getting these shows. And it's a complete waste if they don't work. The tagline of the network is making podcasts that I want to listen to, because I do. And I do listen to each of those shows. I really like them. And if I don't like them, I won't sign them. And if I don't like the NFL show anymore, I won't make it. But I do like it, and I do want to listen to it. Now, if you put all these questions together, do you have a niche? Do you have chemistry with your co-hosts if you have them? Are you willing to do the grind and do it consistently? Do you want the equipment just because it's cool or because it's functional? And would you listen to your show? If you're going, not sure, if you're uncertain about any of that, the answer is don't make the podcast. And it sounds negative, but it's true. You would rather make that decision now. If you veto the bad decision, it's so much better than going ahead with it, because then you've wasted time, money, effort, emotional energy. Just don't worry about it. It's a good thing to look at something and say, you know what, I don't think I have a show. But if you ask all of those questions and can convincingly, knowingly, in your heart say, I think I have something, and yes, I am willing to put in the work, and I think it's what I want to do, then awesome. Go for it. Podcasting is fun, all right? It's not meant to be doom and gloom in this video. These are just truths. This is what I've discovered in almost 4 years of podcasting, and I've learned the hard way with a few of these things, and I've left some projects on the cutting room floor with people that I love because I don't want to make something that's mediocre. I don't want to do it. And I won't always get those decisions right, but these questions have held me in good stead as far as spending my money, allocating my time, and making quality shows. So look, if you have a show and if you need some help, look up Musclecat Media on Instagram and send us a DM and we can chat. All right, good luck.